Everyone, how's it going? My name is Mike, and a lot of you might know me on YouTube for different things like boat building and paintball. But today, in lieu of recent events, I have debated making this channel specifically for this purpose for a while. I've just came to the conclusion that it needs to be done, that if I can have any sort of mass effect on the population as far as knowledge for this epidemic, that it's worth it. That's worth the risk to post these videos. Over the past 4 years, I've been working with the population of people who use and abuse substances, and it has had dramatic effects on their lives. Watching life patterns, watching certain cycles, watching how people actually treat addiction, how they view addiction, and just all the gaps and fillings, and why addiction keeps taking so much ground daily, takes so many lives, ruins so many lives. My objective for this video and any other video posted on this channel is geared specifically to change the way America thinks about addiction. Let me first start out by what addiction actually is. It is an attachment, a very, very deep, strong attachment, and so are many other things. Many terms we have: vices, love, friendships. All those things are attachments, just some are a little bit more fitting that we choose as more comfortable terms for things that we attach to. But a bonding to any one person, place, or thing can be summed up in one word: attachment. Okay? I use the word attachment, and I categorize that all because I'm trying to really change the mind, change the way of thinking for somebody who's actually sober, who's looking at maybe the population of addicts and alcoholics out there and wondering why. Why didn't you just stop? It's very, very simple to just stop. I just don't do it. So let's clarify on that, okay? Have you ever had a boyfriend or girlfriend, a partner, essentially, that everybody, to include your family and friends and even random people, told you that person's no good for you, they're going to do you wrong, stay away from them, and you essentially told everybody who cares about you, no, F you, I'm going to go pursue this anyways. And then later on, that person did actually burn you and made you look stupid, hurt your feelings, broke your heart, but your family and your friends were right. Why did you do that? Why were you so stuck on that person? Why did you change your life for that person in such a way that they had such a dramatic impact on you? So if you've ever felt true love in your life, and that is probably the closest you can actually relate to somebody who is an addict or alcoholic, if you've never actually went down that road. Think about that, and think about how you changed your life for that person, and you fought rejection. You didn't listen to anybody because the attachment you had with that person was so strong, it made you forego everything. We're talking about the part of the brain, forget technical terms. We're talking about the part of the brain that actually deals with experiences, not logic. Logic is what I'm trying to appeal to your better nature with right now. The spectrum of attachment is very, very, it's a big, wide range. It's all the way from simply liking something, having a preference for something, all the way up to love. Okay, as far as natural forms of attachment go. Okay, any single cell organism, all the way up to us, presumably the dominant species on the planet, we all have the same order of rules. We survive by obtaining and maintaining resources, securing safety, securing increases in quality of living, and reproduction. Okay, those things all take substantial amounts of work, and to pursue those things, our body naturally rewards us. Particularly our brain naturally rewards us by giving these natural highs. You can call them euphoria, you can call it dopamine, endorphins, whatever you want to call it. But our brain rewards us. So why would it reward us for these things? All the way from just eating food, to finding your life partner, because they take work. It takes work to find food. It takes work to find water and resources. It takes work to go to your job every day and put up with your job and put up with the stressors of it, hopefully to get a promotion, But any increase in your quality of living should give you a spike, a euphoric spike. Getting a new house, getting a new car, getting a promotion, finding a boyfriend or girlfriend, getting married, graduating college, having children, those are huge euphoric highs, big deals. But let's be realistic, okay? How many cars are you actually going to buy in your life? Probably, maybe a lot. 5, 6, 7 more cars than you're actually going to buy than houses. How many houses are you going to actually buy in your life? Hopefully at least 1, possibly 2 or 3, maybe more depending on who you are, right? How many children are you going to have in your life? It's dramatically less now than it ever was. But generally between 1 and 4 children is the norm for the average working family. How many times are you going to graduate college? How many degrees are you going to get? Generally people get between 1 and 4. But generally 2, associates and bachelors, and hope if you're really ambitious, you go in for a master's or a PhD or a doctorate. The whole point is I can count all those things on my hands. A little bit more. Let's give you roughly about 20 big, huge events that create massive euphoric natural highs. between 15 and 20 for the average person. How long does a human being live? Generally between 65 and 100 years. Okay, so between a span of 65 and 100 years, you are only experiencing these massive euphoric highs, which last a long time when they happen, but I mean, only 15 to 20 times. Why is one of the longest living life forms on the planet, aka us, only subject to having maybe 15 to 20 of these natural freaking euphoric highs throughout our lifetime? Okay, why are they so few and far in between? It's simple, because they take a lot of work. It takes a lot of work to rear children and raise them and make them productive citizens of society. It takes work to just live, to obtain and maintain resources and keep a job. It takes work to put through a job and put up with, disgruntled bosses and employees and coworkers and, get promotions and move up in status. It takes a lot of work to graduate college, years of frustration, and then, just for a piece of paper at the end of the day. And it takes an extreme amount of effort over a lifetime to connect yourself to a life partner, that you marry, and all the stresses and all the fighting and all the everything with that. I mean, why would anybody do those things ever? It's because our brain rewards us naturally with very, very big euphoric highs, okay? And that's a cycle. You have to work hard, you have to put investment time, you have to go through the discomfort and all that, but eventually you get the payoff, and the payoff is worth it. And so that's how we're supposed to go. That's what we're supposed to do. But some people out there, who knows who they were, found out that you could actually achieve these highs artificially, started putting it in substances, started figuring out what the whole deal is, started calling it addiction to these substances. But addiction is no different than love, though it has a substantially strong foothold. It has a much stronger foothold than love will ever have. And love is, in my opinion, the biggest natural euphoric high you can actually feel. And it really loses to addiction every time for these reasons. For one, addiction is an artificial high. It's not a natural high. It can be achieved at will. As long as you have the product or the drink, you can just keep on going and using daily, sometimes a few times a day, many times a day. You can always just keep getting these artificial highs, and they're not just like high, they're like really high. They compete with the best of any high that we have, and then obviously probably exceeding that. And so here you have probably the most powerful high the brain can feel, and it's at will. It's at your disposal. You don't have to do anything for it. You don't have to work. You don't have to achieve anything. You just have to have your product, sit in your chair, and drink or use it, inject it, whatever. That becomes pretty ingraining. Your brain catches on. Here's the whole thing. Your brain is unbiased when it comes to attachment. It just knows what it feels, and if it feels that it's good, it attaches to it. It doesn't really know that it's wrong. We're talking about the only part that spots the entire body, the brain. So I bring this to the table so people can possibly understand where somebody who's struggling with a substance addiction is coming from. And it's painstakingly real, and it changes their entire way of thinking. And so thinking about it as a lesser thing, putting yourself in between it, not really having a good understanding of how powerful it is going to put you at a serious disadvantage if you were trying to help somebody, if you have a family member or a friend who is inflicted with addiction, treating them, belittling them, wondering why they can't think like you or get what you're telling them, why they can't get basic common sense. There's so many reasons for it. But for a second, just think of the brain as something that just, essentially what it is, it's more or less a computer, organic computer that takes in stimuli from our senses, from the environment, hearing, touching, seeing, whatever, and then it computes it all, and it tells the body how to react to the environment in order to get the desired response. It does this over a series of thoughts and feelings, okay? I'm specifically going to talk about the feelings and how that really impacts things. We have all the happy feelings: joy, euphoria, success, excitement, just basic happiness. Then we have the not so great feelings, the negative feelings. We have basic discomfort. Then we have basic anxiety. If we're going down the line, then generally what comes after anxiety is anger, or frustration. And then if we're in anger and frustration for too long, there is exhaustion. And then after exhaustion is the all-knowing, and all-fear depression. Okay, society has really devalued the necessity for anxiety and depression. I mean, it's been kind of a hallmark of morbidity. It's just it's just not very good, because a lot of people have devalued those feelings, devalued negative feelings, and to a point where they don't want to feel them at all. And so that, in that point, it's really easy to become addicted at that point if you don't find value in all the feelings that make your brain work. You have to feel everything in unison in order to make good decisions in life. You need to know when something's bad or when something bad could happen. And so that's why you have basic discomfort and anxiety. You need to have anger, for times when you need to make a real urgent push to get something done. And by fear of something else really going wrong in your life. Okay, you need frustration, afterwards, to acknowledge that it's not working, but your body lets you know you're frustrating, it's not working. So then when you're exhausted from all the effort, and then your body lets you know you're starting to wear yourself out. You're starting to waste a lot of time and resources on something that's not going to go anywhere. You're just hitting walls. You're not getting over the boundaries. Okay, and if you ignore all the feelings and you still keep going on with whatever you're doing, then the brain, it puts you in, it gives you the ultimate middle finger. It gives you exhaustion. It tells you, okay, I try to be nice. I try to warn you with basic discomfort. I try to warn you with all the other ones: anxiety, anger, frustration, even exhaustion, which is pretty extreme. Now you're just going to go into depression. So what happens when people fall into depression? A lot of things, okay? But mainly the one big thing is that they stop doing whatever it is they do. They go and they seclude themselves. They're forced to feel that way for a very, very long time until something changes in their life that gives them leeway and gives them joy again. This is not the case for everyone. Obviously, there are people who for whatever reason, something's wrong up there, and they feel depression almost constantly no matter what's going on. So, I mean, that's a different case. But I'm talking for a lot of people, and in my experience for most people, them running into depression is a result of constant hitting under situational stress, that they a failure to adapt to that situational stress or accept it, too much dwelling, too much avoidance of stress, which causes even bigger stress, massive problems that they can't process through. Why it's so important to understand the necessity of all the negative feelings and what they actually do for you, and finding the value in that, is that if you do anything to divert those negative feelings, then you're really setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up for stagnation, regression. Essentially, you could be living in very, very terrible conditions, very, very poor, very slummy, nasty, like, you look at people and you're like, why would you even live that way conditions? And you can live that way just fine. And there are like deviations. There's a spectrum of this. Like, have you ever known anybody who's worked at a dead-end job for like a decade, 2 decades, and they hate their job, they hate their boss, they don't even have a car, they're riding their bicycle back and forth to their apartment with rowdy neighbors that don't allow them to sleep, and they're able to live that way day in, day out for like many, many years. You have to wonder how they're able to even do that for so long and not fall into a massive slump of depression and just kind of kill over and stop functioning. The answer is substances, all the way, anything from basic nicotine and caffeine, all the way up to, meth and heroin. Those distort the chemistry, okay? They more or less, constrict any of the negative feelings, make them very, very, very ineffective, and then they really, really expand the euphoric feelings. And if we're talking about a healthy brain that makes healthy decisions, is constantly, dependent on the fluctuation of evenness between negative and positive feelings to make the right decision, then a brain that's clenched on negative and really, really expanding on the positive, I mean, that's like you had a V8 and all the cylinders were running, one side was kind of going weak, so you just said, screw that side. You turbocharge the other side, so, the 4 cylinders on that side are really overloadedly working to pull the entire engine, and it looks like it's working, but it's really going to go to shit real fast. And so that's essentially somebody's brain that is heavily dependent on substances not working right. It doesn't work right. So if you've ever saw the actions, if you've ever had family or friends that did you wrong, who are addicts, and you just could not get it, it's a privilege to not get it, because that means your brain is at least functioning to a certain standpoint where it's able to like absorb in all the stimuli and make effective decisions, have good insight and judgment. But the average addict is not a stupid person. The average addict is actually very, very smart, very manipulative, and that's why many of us get burnt by them and we become bitter, maybe even hateful of them. But it's part of the cycle. The brain is not working correctly. It is not able to do that things, and they will continue to make bad decisions. They will continue to minimize things, to not focus on stuff. Never underestimate, the power of value. Something that people find value in. We start to kind of allocate all of our time and resources towards that. We start to minimize everything else. Okay, and, I mean, that's self-evident based on the level of attachment we have. So somebody who has a substance addiction, I mean, they're going to more or less find the most value in that. They're going to pursue that, and they're really going to minimize other things. That's why, you know, the job goes away, they stop really caring about their house, you know, they stop hanging around family, and they're presumably sober friends. They kind of just drift off into a community that is all about that, and all the stuff that entails with. And none of it really makes sense to a sober person. People like scratch their legs, like, what did I do wrong? Am I a bad parent? Am I a bad friend? Is this my fault? Like, I didn't raise them to be this way. How could they be so mean? How could they be so despicable? Chances are it's likely that it's not your fault. Maybe it is, partially, but it would be wrong of you to take responsibility for the whole thing. There's so many reasons people become addicted. It's not just a really cut and dry deal. That's a discussion for another time because this video is getting pretty long. But I hope this gives you some insight into where it goes. And so I'm going to be posting videos here fairly regularly because of stuff that's going on. I mean, you know, the epidemic with the opiates, which is really a massive deal. I mean, it keeps on going, and it's at the point where the president has declared a state of emergency, to my knowledge, over the past few hours, and just it's time to take action, and it's time for us to actually think differently and give addiction the credit it deserves, and that's how we'll get through. Thank you guys. Please subscribe. Please pass this video on to everybody you know, anybody you think this could be useful to, because this is where we start to have a mass effect on how people think. If we can change the way people think about addiction, we can actually start to turn it over. Thank you very much for your time.